And all right, what's up, everybody?
What's happening? We got a lot of familiar faces on here today.
Yeah.
Victoria, haven't seen Victoria in a while. Jim, awesome.
Yep.
Johnny Shep. Joni's got her 18 strong gear on. Check it out.
Of course.
I was literally sitting in that chair last weekend.
Oh,
Is that
down,
right?
yeah, down at
If,
the
if
wedding,
any of you
huh?
guys, if any of you saw the picture that I posted on Instagram or Facebook, wherever it went out, of me reading in the morning with a cup of coffee, with a pool behind it and a pond behind the pool. It was basically turned Jones' chair around, and I was sitting right there.
Wow.
We had a great day. We played some golf, went to the club. It was had lots of fun before the Buckley wedding the next day.
That's cool.
Yeah, you went slumming, huh?
Yeah. What was it, Joan? Like 75, maybe 80 degrees, low humidity. It was a beautiful Florida day.
Yeah.
We played some golf. Couldn't have had a better weekend, really.
Sounded like the 19 degrees in Chicago that I was at for
That sounds gross.
oh, it's horrible.
Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet. That's pretty bad.
Yeah. We're kind of upper 40s right now. Rhino, looks like we've got a little bit of rain in our forecast for our race this weekend. This weekend is the big trail run that Ryan and I do every year. So it might be a little muddy, a little gross.
8 miles of mud up.
8 miles of mud straight
and down
uphill
the
the whole
hills.
way.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it'll all be covered in leaves.
Oh, great. Slippery, wet leaves.
I might wear my golf spikes to this thing.
Shep, are you going?
No,
I know you've been on the outs on running.
I haven't raced since April, so
Gotcha.
I haven't raced since last December at this race.
Same.
Nor have I jogged since last December at this race.
Yeah, this might be a different challenge this year for you, Rhino.
My challenge is just to finish every year. I'm good. I jog plenty on the soccer field.
So what do we got going on? I know we've got some things to talk about here. I posted in the Facebook group, and we by the way, we're going to start using the Facebook group a little bit more. As far as community wise and interacting with people, it's such a great tool and an easy way to communicate. So I'm going to do a better job of being in there more often and kind of sparking some conversations or answering questions or just all of it, especially with the Forge. I know last year when we did the Forge or when we started the Forge in January, it was a great place for a lot of people to just kind of interact on a daily basis and, just kind of push each other a little bit, ask for help a little bit. So I think that's an important thing for us to follow up on and maybe even build some momentum as we get close to January and help get some other people in there and get some other people inspired. So if I'm in there asking a few questions, that's why I want to kind of get some more engagement in there with you guys, and especially anybody that has done the Forge or has been in our community a little bit. I'm going to ask you a little pretty please help to, just help inspire some of the other folks that are maybe kind of sitting on the fence and kind of watching from the outsides as far as, dipping their toes in the water or really jumping all the way in when it comes to the Forge in January. So,
yeah, this year is going to be different because we have, a handful of people that have gone through it. I'm looking at 2 of them right here. Well, 3 of them, if I'm counting you. Like, that's pretty great to have that support.
Yeah.
We've got that common part of it, misery, but at the end turns out pretty awesome.
yeah.
So yeah,
I'm
that'll
excited.
be a really good support system having. So Marina and Jim and everybody else,
Johnny Shep did it too.
Johnny Shep, yeah, free ambassadors.
That's right. So invite anybody and everybody for sure. We obviously want to have as many people as possible. And you guys, now I'm looking at you guys as some of the leaders in this endeavor too. So, you guys are the people that have already seen it, done it, and now can lead from the front as well. So, and help keep me accountable. Don't let me forget my stupid, silly stuff. So I got to do this thing all over again.
I'm trying my best, I got a chap called James Morrison on board now for the Forge.
Yes.
He's a performance coach. And I just saw tonight, he posted on his website, it's called Performance Golf or something. And he is encouraging all his clients and, you know, his crew to join us as well.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. James and I, we connected a little bit. I'll have to make sure I reach out again. I know he was in one of the threads recently about doing the Forge. So we'll definitely connect with him. That's awesome that he's trying to bring his people in as well. That's what I love.
Yeah, that's right. So let's schedule that Thursday before New Year's. That can be the Forge live Q&A call. Where
Yeah,
we really dig into that.
That's a great idea. I was thinking, you know, if it would be helpful for people, and we'll push that out there to, you know, kind of go through maybe a little bit of details about it, but also just some suggestions. And that's where we'll really rely on some of you guys too. Just, you know, what were some of the things that helped you get through it? What were some of the things that were challenges and how you overcame them? I think that'll be a cool call. We'll try to get, we'll make sure you guys know about that one, the Thursday before, because that's, right before, in between Christmas and New Year's, right, Ryan? Is that what you're thinking?
29th
Okay.
will be the, So then you've got 1, 2, 3 days. I'm thinking the Forge probably starts on the 2nd.
The
for
second.
most people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we're
that
gonna start on
Monday.
the second.
Yeah. I feel like you've been on some version of the Forge all year.
It's been on and off. Yeah. I mean, between the 40-day Forge, then the back 9, and then doing 75 hard, which,
That's over 100 days right there.
yeah.
150.
Yeah. So it's been a very interesting and challenging year when it comes to in fact, it's funny because I run into so many people and they're like, can you drink yet? You know, like,
Oh, shut up. That's the standard question. Like, that's like, how's the weather?
Yeah. But I will tell you this. I have another friend of mine named Tim, and he did the Forge last year. And I mean, that kind of sparked him on a whole new path. And then he's the one that I did 75 hard with. And he's all in, man. I think from the start of 75 hard, he lost almost 30 pounds. And Tim was not a very overweight guy, but he, you know, just it's amazing how when you do these things, your mindset shifts so much. And it's funny because, you know, doing the Forge this past year, and then even doing 75 hard, certain things were just easy this time, right? Like they just weren't, they weren't the challenge that they were the first time around. And so I'm really excited for those of you that have already done it or tried it last year. Maybe somebody's on here that is watching the replay that didn't get through it all the way last year. I know a couple people, Rhino, friends of ours, that were like hot to trot at the beginning, and then, you know, they just kind of faded off and we never heard from them again over the 40 days, but they saw the benefit of the first 2 weeks and they really were making some huge progress. And then I think, you know, like many people, they maybe miss something, they forget something, they stop doing something, and then they slowly fade off, and it becomes just another thing that they tried, another resolution that they were hoping. I'm hoping that they go back and do it again with us this year, because now the shock factor is gone. They know what to expect. And now they've seen that other people have done it, and they've seen some of the results. And that's maybe what we need to do also is get some stories in there of people that have done it already and the benefits that they got from it, and make it a little bit more well-known that, you know, it's not just about me doing it or what my results were, but, you know, Marina and Jim and Shep and, you know, some of the other people that we have that have great stories. And just to get those people to do it again, because now when you guys go through it the second time, I think you're going to find that the things that were hard the first time aren't necessarily that hard, or you're just going to end up pushing yourself a little bit harder in those categories. And so, you know, maybe like, for instance, for myself, for the 40-minute workout, I've already said, I'm not going to count ever the walk of the dog in the morning. That's never going to be my, you know, last time I most of the time didn't count it, but I made sure that I did 40 minutes every walk, because it, just in case I ran out of time, I would use that. And it was almost like my backup plan. So there's no more backup plan this year. I have to do another 40 minutes of some sort of activity. It doesn't mean I'm going to always do a 40-minute dog walk, but So you're just going to push yourself a little bit further. Maybe your cold shower gets a little bit longer. Maybe you don't just do the 1 minute, which right now the cold showers are so freaking cold here in St. Louis. I want to go back to, I did a few when I was at Jones. I did a few cold showers there and I'm like, oh, Florida cold showers this is awesome.
Yeah, the groundwater is like 70 degrees. It's
Oh,
perfect.
I was like, I don't even think I can turn the cold water on here. But anyway, pushing yourselves a little bit further each and every time, it's that cumulative effect. And it's less about, the short-term results. I feel like Ryan and I and many of the people that have been with us for so long, we've all been on this journey where slowly but surely if you look at where you were 5 years ago, I know for myself, where I was physically 5 years ago, even mentally 5 years ago, is completely different. And it's not because, partially it's because of some of these drastic things, these challenges, but it's really just the slow build over the years, diet wise, exercise wise. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit today is some of the things that we thought were really important before, or things that we thought were the right way to do things, how we've kind of changed our mindset or changed our mind, either because of something we've learned or experiences we've had, or stories that we've heard from some of the people in our crew too.
Yeah, I like that the forge, even if you don't make it, it's still, you learn, like, it's habit stacking just because it gets so much easier every time. Where we talk about this all the time, if somebody walked into the gym today, you would not put them on your program. You would not say, hey, go walk the dog for 40 minutes in the morning, go work out in the afternoon, do this, and this. That's not a sustainable thing. It's great for the forges to get you going, but that's not, and I've said that too, like, don't do what I do. Just because we've just built it over time. And that's, me being having the marketing brain, it's like, God damn, that's so hard to explain to people.
Mm-hmm.
That it's like, no, I want it now. And then third, we could sell 1 million 30-day golf fitness shredded bullshit packages if we wanted to.
Well, and there's plenty of workouts. Got a little distracted by Randy's comment here in the chat box. I'll address that in a second, Randy. There's so many things where you and I shouldn't jump into somebody else's workout,
Right.
For instance, the run that we're going to do this weekend. We've got a couple buddies. I've got a couple buddies. I know Shepard has a couple buddies that are, insane runners. And if I tried to do whatever they do for their training, I'd rip my calf and I'd be a lame duck for a week. It doesn't make sense. So finding what's right for you. Obviously in our world, we're all working on the golf piece, the mobility piece, the strength piece. So we all have a little bit more in common. And so we can generalize a few things, but yeah, you don't start at 100 miles an hour. You start at the beginning and you work your way up. So Randy, to address your question, running around outside in a Speedo, is that like a cold shower? First of all, the visual here, Randy, is
so great.
Not what I needed on a Thursday afternoon. But no, that doesn't count. Cold shower is either turn the hot water all the way off in the shower, or we will accept a 1 minute cold plunge. The temperature of the water, is negotiable. It's whatever you can do, or whatever you can find. Like a cold shower in Florida, that water might have been 70 degrees. Cold shower here in St. Louis right now feels like it's in the 40s or something.
It's cold.
On top of, walking outside when it's cold out. But no, now, and I've even had somebody ask me, is walking the dog in the rain a cold shower? No, that doesn't count either. So,
You're missing the point.
You're missing the point. It's a task. Check it off. Okay. All right. Before we jump into our chat, anything else good happening, Rhino? Anything else we want to cover ahead of time?
It's all good. Yeah, it's Joe Rogan just had a good guy. I need to look and see who this was. He's a fitness guy, and they started kind of getting into the BS, fallacies of more. They're talking more about the bodybuilding stuff. One of the guys, like a real popular, I guess, Instagram guy, the Liver King. Have you ever heard of this
Liver
guy?
King.
Oh yeah, Liver King.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just a total turd, got outed for being on steroids after having not been on steroid or said it for years. And you take one look at the guy, I'm like, clearly that guy is on steroids. But yeah, like it's funny how that, you just kind of go down the wormhole about like, and The Rock, they were talking about like right now he says he's shifted into more of a longevity mindset, which is total BS because he's on steroids too.
No, he's definitely on steroids.
But he's at least saying the right things. Like, yeah, you're 50 years old. You're not going to build the same muscle you would when you're 20. It is kind of time to, I don't know if that's like accepted, but yeah, you don't need to look like you look. So yeah, more of the longevity is probably the mindset that most people should have because we're not training for anything really, just a healthy lifestyle.
Well, I mean, and that's where, we've been talking, Ryan, to Jason Phillips quite a bit, who we've had on the
Yep.
show several times. And Jason always talks about the triangle of awareness, where it's, there's basically three things. There's, either you're training, eating for performance, for basically lifestyle and longevity, or for aesthetics. And, if you map that out on a triangle, you're going to be somewhere in there, right? If you're right in the middle, you're kind of generalized, you're kind of doing a little bit of all of it. So you got to figure out like what's really important. Do I want a little bit of all of it? Then, okay. Do you really want to make a change aesthetically in what your body looks like and your body composition? Well, then you have to start skewing a little bit more towards that corner in order to do that, because your goals are going to have to, or the process is going to look a little bit different to hit those goals. If your main objective is, no, I'm training specifically to be the best golfer I possibly can be. I don't really care about how I look. I don't really care about the longevity piece. There's going to be some different things that you're going to end up doing in that regard, as far as, building speed and maybe the mobility pieces and things like that. And then if you're training and, maybe even if you look at a different sport, maybe CrossFit is your performance thing. So you're going to be training way different if your goal is CrossFit, to win CrossFit, than you would if your goal is longevity or even aesthetics. So, and then, if your goal is more longevity, then you're going to be doing, a few more of the recovery based things that we talk about. You're going to be doing some more of the, just lifestyle kind of habits, diet. What's your diet? Is it more about how you look, or is it more about, long-term health wise and how you feel? So you just kind of have to piece out like, where are you in that triangle, and what's going to work best for you to give you a little bit of guidance of, where you're going to go. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I like that one, how he explains that. So I need a very simple graph to have things explained to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh,
So before I get into kind of today's topic, just real quick, I wanted to touch on the Hayden Buckley wedding that I went to this past weekend, because, and not so much the wedding itself. The wedding was awesome. We had just a blast. And they had one of the coolest things that I've seen as far as like the band. They had a DJ, but then they had a drummer and a saxophone player. So it was like you had a mix of both. You had like all the real music that you want to listen to, but then the band and the sax player, just made it way more fun. The saxophone guy was out on the dance floor all the time and, getting the whole crowd pumped up. And then they threw out hats that said Buck. I need to see, we should probably make these Buck hats in the future, Rhino. And they passed them all out to the crowd. So everybody's wearing their Buck hats. It was just a good time. But what's really cool is I think that everybody in the 18 Strong community has a little bit of a feeling like Hayden's our guy, right? Like he's one of our peeps. And to talk to I got to sit next to his caddy, Brian, basically all night and hang out with him. These guys, they're on a trajectory to go someplace. And Brian was just saying how Hayden is firing on all cylinders, and even amongst some of the other players and caddies, these guys know that Hayden is the real deal. So like he was mentioning some names that they played with and guys that they, have kind of gotten to know a little bit. And Brian's like, just wait. And Hayden I didn't really realize this, but Hayden said that, I think since the US Open, he's only missed one cut. So,
oh boy.
yeah, he's been playing some serious golf.
Holy
So-
cow.
So get ready. He's on his honeymoon, now he'll have this past him. He's got, kind of the all the stuff that he was focusing on with the wedding and all that in the background. So he'll be back nice and relaxed, and he will start up in January in Hawaii. So I still
Poor
I,
guy.
I, I still claim I said within 2 years on the PGA Tour he's going to have a win. So this has to be the year to prove me right. And I told him that. So because that's his main concern.
Yes, I think you're number one on his priority list,
Yeah,
especially on a wedding day.
right. But
Cool.
no, it was good to see him and hang out and catch up.
Yeah, that guy's great.
All right.
So biggest BS basically is kind of not BS, but what we've learned along the way that everybody kind of thinks that the opposite is true for a lot of these kind of fall in that category.
Yeah, and I would say that, it's not like we're trying to call BS on all this stuff. I mean, these are things that, either we were taught
We thought was
or
right.
that we thought were right. So, to nobody's fault, it's just like there's a journey and there's a path of learning where, you think you're doing what's best at the time. And then hopefully as we continue to get better and read more, learn more, watch more, we start to understand things a little bit better. And we start to take in different information from different people. Obviously, we've had a chance to learn from some really, really amazing coaches, players, mental game specialists that, we've had on the show, and just people that we've gotten to interact with in person or online. And so I just wanted to kind of go through, I've got a list. I don't know if we'll even get through all of these. In fact, this might have to be a 2-part series of all this shit that I've gotten wrong in the past. But I mean, I just want to highlight, I've got 7 things written down, and we'll see how many we get through before the time elapses. But the first thing that is kind of an easy one, and we've done this, we had this in our programs regarding speed training, right? That's such a big thing these days is the overspeed training, what we should be doing, how do we do it? Everybody's looking for speed. Everybody's looking for more distance. And one of the things that kind of is debated amongst a lot of the different fitness professionals is the whole opposite handed golf swings. We've seen it with overspeed training. We see it with, we have it in a lot of our programs, and I still think that there's a definite benefit to doing opposite handed swings. But where I've changed my mind is initially we were teaching people, and there still are people teaching this, that you need to do those opposite handed swings at max effort. And, we're really big on weighing out the risks and the rewards of everything that we put in our programs, everything that we talk about with you guys. And just over the years, I've come to feel that, when I watch people do offhanded swings or opposite handed swings, whatever you want to call them, it's very uncoordinated. It feels very weird for people. Right. And so anytime you're doing something with poor form, there's a little bit of a risk of injury there, right? I mean, and it kind of shames me to say that we didn't really pay as much attention to this out of the gate as we should have. I mean, if I see somebody doing something with bad form in the gym, we're going to try to correct it, right? We're not going to let them continue to do that for risk of them hurting themselves. If we have somebody swinging left-handed or opposite-handed, sorry for all you lefties out there. If we have somebody swinging off-handed, they're obviously going to be swinging with some poor form, some poor sequencing, and it's going to be very awkward. And the thought process is, well, we get them swinging as fast as possible. That's kind of what we were taught. That's what we taught people is by doing that as fast as possible, that's going to help transfer over to the opposite side, or it's going to help with your acceleration, deceleration. But the risk of that to me now is like, well, there's definitely risk of injury. It's just like watching somebody try to do CrossFit and they have terrible form. They're doing these overhead squats or they're doing these clean and jerks and their form is awful. And they're doing them with speed. speed is definitely a stressor that can cause injury. And if we're having people just swing the golf club as fast as possible without them building up any kind of skill in doing that, well, then that's definitely a risk. So I would highly caution you when you're doing the overspeed training programs. And I still am a very big believer in the overspeed training programs. I'm hoping to have Sasha McKenzie on the show in the near future with the stack system. He's they call him the savant of speed. And I want to talk to him about it. I don't believe they have any opposite-handed swings in their program. I do think from a coordination standpoint, to do some swings opposite-handed is beneficial. I think that it does, but it does help to transfer over a little bit of the mobility, teaching your body to rotate both ways, teaching your body to stop and start both ways. But I don't think it has to be at max speed. And even in the Forge, we do 15 swings both ways. So when you're doing these in the Forge, I'm going to suggest that and really, as we did them in the Forge, we're not even necessarily telling you to do them at max speed. It's more just to build some repetitions. And a lot of times you're going to do those when you're not, I would suggest being somewhat warmed up before you do these swings. But let's face it, sometimes you forget, and at the end of the night, you run outside and you do your 15 swings. We're all guilty of that, right, Jim?
We're in the cul-de-sac.
So that's why
The midnight swing.
the midnight swing. I like it. That's why, just be safe with those. Those are just more about making sure that your body's getting some repetition of motion. So, that's number one is, let's lay off trying to max out on those opposite-handed swings, because wrist injuries, shoulder injuries, back injuries, if things aren't working in sequence the way that they should, then, again, we're running the risk of some issues there.
Yeah, it feels really awkward when you try and swing as hard as you can wrong-handed. So
yeah,
I'm sure everybody's felt that same way. Like, oh, it's not fluid at all. And I know, who did we have on the show? And he
Chris
said,
Finn?
yes, like the jury's out. He wouldn't give us a definitive answer. I'm sure the answer now is that's just one side, as far as for speed.
as far as for the speed component. Yeah. Now, one of the reasons why I have always believed in the opposite-handed swings, as far as just from kind of a neurological standpoint, when I was in the clinic as a physical therapist, working with stroke victims, working with people with like a hemiplegia kind of a situation, we would do drills or exercises on the one side with hope of transfer to the other side from a brain to muscle connection, brain, like a neurological connection.
Right.
And there's studies that show that. And that's one of the reasons why people have said opposite-handed swings can be beneficial. But again, I just want to caution everyone that, again, weigh the risks and rewards. We've tried to beat it into everybody's head. Be smart about what you're doing. If you take a swing and it doesn't feel good and you're like, I'm not sure about this, then don't do it. There's not the benefit there.
Yeah, same thing with clean and jerks and all those Olympic lifts that are in all these goofy tips and tricks and programs like that. I mean, that's how I jacked up my shoulder for 12 months or 10 months, whatever it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Not doing things that you're not skilled in or trained in. And then add weight and add speed. Not a good recipe.
No. Check.
All right. Any questions on that? Guys, by all means, if you have if you want us to call you out, I think you can raise your hand on this little thing or jump in the chat with a question. Happy to bring you guys in on these. Again, these are crew and A situations, so we want you guys to be a part of this.
Yeah. So Randy says swinging lighter has proven to increase swing speed, which light, I think we're talking more speed.
So Randy, can you pull on or unmute yourself here?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. So kind of explain what you're talking about here, because obviously you have a lot of experience in the speed world of long driving and everything.
Well, yes, and the thing is with the clubs that they have, I forget the name of them, but they start with a club that's lighter than your normal club, and they work up to heavier. But I think it started with baseball where they were put the donut on the bat and they think that they're going to get faster by swinging something heavier, to where they went into swinging wiffle bats and they found that they are actually are swinging the bat faster doing that. And in track, instead of pulling the sled, what they're doing is they're pulling the runner. And we're doing the same thing in swimming, as we're pulling the swimmer so that they have a faster tempo. So lightening the load and allowing the athlete to work faster has had the benefits of increasing speed on several sports.
So
Yeah.
you're literally pulling the swimmers along so it's easier for them to get there?
Yeah, there's several ways of doing it. There's actually one is called a power tower. So you hook a belt onto the swimmer and it's connected to a series of cables. And as they go out, it has a resistance. So like the heaviness. And then when they come in, it makes it lighter for them. So they have to actually keep up with it. But the same thing is happening, my understanding the track is that they're actually pulling the sprinter to go faster.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the concept, and that's where the overspeed and underspeed are, where they use a little bit of a heavier club. That's why talking to the super speed guys, they did a lot of testing early on. I'm sure we'll have Sasha talk about it too, what the right amount of weight is. But they found that, if you go too heavy on that heavy club, it does nothing but slow you down. So Kyle and Mike from Super Speed, they said that we needed to find a weight where the swing speed might be a little bit slower, but the body needs to be moving as fast as your normal driver swing would be. So they had to find what that right weight was. I think it might be 5% heavier than your regular driver. And then the lighter club is, and I might get this wrong, it might be 10% lighter than your regular driver. But doing the combination of the two is important too, because just like Randy said, with the the resistance on the way out for the swimmer, and then actually pulling them on the way in, the resistance helps you build a little bit of being able to get your muscles to work a little bit harder, but it's going to slow you down, right? And so if all you do is do slow things, then you're building that tempo of slow. And that's where they did that test. I want to say TPI did the test on the donut on the baseball bat, and it ended up slowing down. Everybody thought you'd swing with this heavy weight on the bat, and then you take that off and it feels so light that you're swinging. It feels like you're swinging it fast as can be. Well, when they really tested what their swinging speeds were, it was quite a bit slower than what their normal swing speed was, because that weight neurologically slowed them down. And so now the muscles aren't, reacting quite as quick. And so that's why even when you're doing the super speed clubs, we always tell you to end with the lightest weight, because that's what you want your body to remember at the end, is that fastest swing. And so doing those overspeed training, the stack or super speed golf, that's why they have those specific weights picked out. And that's why you always end up with doing the fast ones. And I would say that, if I were going out and just taking like one of the sticks out to the range before I was playing, I would take the faster one as opposed to the heavier one.
All right.
One other thing is that you mentioned the long drive. When I was doing the long drive, I think I talked about this before, I would swing a broom. We call it a corn broom, but
Oh, yeah.
anyhow, that would, not realizing how much it weighed, it was just longer and heavier than the golf club, but it was helped to get the turn, because we're trying to get that John Daly turn.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, John Daly did give me a lesson in 1997. So you're
Awesome.
picking on my buddy when you call him. But anyhow,
He knows he's a larger man.
Yeah, we call a spade here, Randy.
All right.
but anyhow, so that would help to get that rotation, but then coming down the head of the broom added the resistance. So it is like swinging the heavier club, but that's what I did then. And we're talking 20 years ago, but my club head speed was over 140. So I think that really helped a lot.
Well, and interesting, Randy, it'd be cool to be able to take a, shuttle back in time. And if you were doing that with the broom, but then you also had another club like a super speed club that had the lighter version too, and then you trained with both of those. I would love to see what the results of that would have been. You know, just kind of like I mean the broom itself. Well, you've got things like the orange whip, which, you know, it's different, but it helps with the turn, helps kind of use a little bit of weight to get you into a different position, helps with your sequencing and timing, but that you're definitely swinging slower with an orange whip. And then they've got the club with the fan on the end of it that provides that resistance, which I think is probably a little bit more like what you were swinging, or the same kind of effect. And yeah, that's definitely going to slow you down. Again, it's working a little bit on the sequencing though, which I think is an awesome thing. And then I think if you could take the swing fan and then do like an overspeed with it afterwards, like an underweighted club, I think that would be an interesting test. I'm sure Sasho has done some sort of testing with the resistance and things like that. So hopefully we'll, in fact, before we do get him on, I'm going to, speaking of the Facebook group, we'll see what kind of questions you guys have for him that we can maybe prep for a little bit more, and then we can get some things, some more out of him.
So one other thing that we did, because we were swinging longer clubs up to 50 inches, is Jack Nicklaus used to do this. He would counterweight the club. So we would put in the handle weight so that instead of this long club weighing like an E something, we could get it back down to a C9 and its swing weight. So that would help counter the heaviness of the club, and so you can swing it faster.
Awesome. Very cool.
Jack Nicklaus, that guy had some good ideas.
Yeah, he knows some things. Thank you, Randy. Appreciate it. Okay. Moving on to number 2. So, and these are in no order whatsoever. These are just kind of jotted down this morning. So growing up in the golf fitness world, and I say growing up because I kind of started in this in 2008 when it was not even really, you know, there was hardly anything along the lines of golf fitness that was out to the major public. It's kind of cool to see how far it's come since then. But I think that it was pretty much commonplace to think that the key to hitting a ball further was simply increasing your rotational strength and increasing, you know, basically going into a gym and figuring out how you can find a heavy weight and rotate it. So whether that be a cable, you know, you see people grabbing dumbbells, you see people doing whatever they can, resistance bands, and it kind of became the thing to just start, well, this looks like a golf swing, and I'm going to grab it and I'm going to rotate. And, you know, basically did that with a lot of clients as far as, well, you know, golfers have to rotate. So let's grab this cable and let's do some rotations. There's still a place for that, but I would say that what has been learned over the years is that it's not so much about how much weight and strength you have when you're trying to rotate something. It's more about the quality of the way that you rotate. And it's more about the strength that you have in your lower body and the power you can generate from your lower body, and then be able to use that to facilitate your rotation. So, you know, when you go into the gym and you grab a cable on the stack and you grab it and you load the plates up, what's happening is you end up putting a lot of stress on your spine. And we figured out that's not what we want to do, right? We want to actually learn how to stabilize our spine while we rotate. So when I say rotation quality, I mean making sure that our upper trunk can rotate. You know, basically rotation happens in 2 primary places for the golf swing. It's your upper trunk. So like your rib cage, the spine that's part of your rib cage, we call it your thoracic spine. Those vertebrae are designed to rotate. You know, they move a little forward and back, but they are designed to rotate as well. Your lumbar spine is not designed to rotate. And so when you're grabbing a heavy weight and you're just trying to rotate, many times we're rotating through our lower spine unintentionally. And so you're creating this force, this torsion on the discs, when really those vertebrae are meant to go for those of you that can see me, are meant to go forward and backwards, not side to side or not rotationally. So you're creating a force on these discs that is unnatural, and you're actually putting more stress and strain on those discs, and possibly, creating some issues. Now, not to say that you shouldn't ever rotate with a little bit of weight, but I don't think you should ever go super heavy. And I say that because I learned, and from some of the guests on our show, guys like Dr. Stuart McGill, Mike Boyle, some of the best strength and conditioning coaches in the game. Dr. Stuart McGill, one of the top level researchers when it comes to back pain and spine health and disc health. So what you want to do is make sure that the other pieces of the body that need to rotate, so your upper trunk and then your hips, your hip joints, your pelvis should be able to rotate on your hip joints. That's where our rotation comes from. And then the strength and speed is really going to come from the generation of that from your lower body. So that's why we've been so big on lower body exercises, lower body strengthening in all of our programs. And we feel that it's such a neglected piece in really most adult training programs. A lot of high school athletes, college athletes, they're forced and they just kind of grow up learning that the lower body strength training is part of it. Many of us, my generation and older, it's, especially the guys, we have tended to all of our lives kind of focus a little bit more on the upper body strengthening and much less on the lower body. The lower body stuff has usually come from like running, and anybody that played a sport where you were running, that was kind of the exercise for the lower body. So one of the biggest bangs for our buck that we've seen with all of our clients, both my inpatient, both my in-person clients, as well as, all the golfers that we hear from that have done our programs, is the increasing strength and ability to move of the lower body, because it's something that many haven't done in a very good way as far as proper form, increasing resistance progressively and really challenging themselves that way.
Yeah, like dudes are notoriously flawed when it comes to, I'm gonna just work out my show muscles. That's why the leg day doesn't. Most of the guys I talk to who even work out regularly don't. If they're gonna skip a day, it's gonna be leg day.
Well, and I would say that many don't even have a leg day
Right.
thought up. Their leg day is, I'm going to go jog. I'm going to get on the treadmill. I'm going to go do the elliptical. I'm going to go do the bike, which are fine.
Something.
But they don't substitute for strength training of the lower body. I mean, it just isn't
right.
the same. So implementing that into your programs. So lower body, just building up a good solid base of strengthening for the lower body, eventually getting into some things where you're then moving the lower body a little faster, some little jumping or landing kind of exercises. That's getting a little further down the road. But then just, get a strong lower body and make sure that your trunk and your hips can rotate well, and you're ahead of 90% of the majority of golfers.
Yeah. So going back to how we got started on that with the rotation, where you're picking up a heavy weight and just doing that, and I'm probably skipping ahead here, but you said there's no order. Is that like the big fallacy that we always, not that we always had, but like in the beginning where you're just trying to mimic the golf swing with weight? Does it kind of fall under that category?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that's where it kind of initially came from is, well, just naturally thinking like that's in that sport, you're rotating. So why not grab something heavy and rotate with it? It makes sense in the brain when you think about it. Well, that will get me stronger in that motion, right?
Right.
But also what we just talked about is, what are we mostly looking for when we're rotating? We're looking for speed. Well, if you're grabbing something really heavy and rotating, that's not going to build up your speed. It's going to build up, there's going to be some strength built. Don't get me wrong. But again, it's not about just what it looks like. It's about figuring out what are the true mechanics of it. And there's just better ways to do it. There's easier ways to do it than, doing something that might cause some injury to the low back.
Gotcha.
Good. Anybody thoughts on that?
Anyone?
All right. Moving on. and I know Ryan can speak to this next one. This is a little bit more of a dietary one, but for the longest time, anytime that I was, we talked about that performance triangle, right? And the aesthetics piece is many times why people train. I mean, let's just face it, many times we train just
sure.
simply to look better, right? We eat to look better, or and really eating is really one of the easiest, is the way to end up, changing your body composition. That's ultimately what changes body composition. So if you're on that performance or that triangle of awareness, and you're in that aesthetics piece, if weight training or workouts are your only solution, you're never going to get to where you want to be. It becomes the dietary thing. But what I, for the longest time, believed, because I had good experience with it and saw results with it, was that going super low carb was the way for everybody to go when it comes to their diet. And I kind of got into that thought process of, this is what has leaned me out the quickest. And when I talk super low carb, we could, and keto is one thing. Keto is, kind of something that I haven't dove into much at all, but going super low carb, we were probably getting close into the ketosis range, where it was like, 50 grams or less of carbs per day. But what I really noticed is, and Joan can attest to this. So for those of you that don't know, I've worked with Joan for almost 10 years, right, Joan? Pretty soon. So, Joan knew me when I was just a young little buck back in the day. But I would go on these stints where I was, really working on the body composition piece of it, would go super low carb. And Joan would come in and say, "Are you sick?" Because I got so thin and just didn't quite look as healthy. And it was because I was losing weight. I was losing mass. My body fat was going down, but also what I noticed was my energy levels were definitely changed in those periods. And so what I would say is everybody needs to figure out what works for them. There's not a one size fits all when it comes to this, but what we've learned over the years is what's more important is not so much what you're cutting out of your diet. So it's not so much about totally getting rid of the carbs. It's more about making sure that your caloric intake is where it needs to be, and that you're getting the right amount of protein. Those are the two biggest factors when it comes to changing body composition, performance. Now, when it comes to performance, and this is where we would bring somebody like Tony Soybal in to talk a little bit more about this, when it talks about energy demands, when you're talking about, different sports and what you need for training, and carbohydrates and sugars and things like that. But the biggest thing that we want people to focus on is not, hey, you got to go low carb, or hey, you got to go high fat or high carb or whatever. It's, let's first and foremost figure out where, if this is a goal of yours, where your calorie levels are and where your protein levels are, because most of us don't have any idea where we are in those two categories. And just those two things alone will solve most of your issues when it comes to weight gain, weight loss, in those situations. Obviously, there are many people that have different other struggles around food. They have other issues going on that are causing them to not get results with just those two things. But for the majority of people, paying attention to those two things are going to take care of your primary concerns.
Yeah, the low carb thing it's hard because it works so damn well if you're trying to lose weight. I mean, it's a very common sense thing. I remember my wife, Kendra, I was doing, back then, it might have been Atkins still. I'm like, nope, I'm just doing, and I was shooting for like 20 grams of carbs or under every day.
Yeah, a day.
Crazy low. And she looked at me, she's like, I don't think that's right to just like cut out an entire category of your diet. Like, you don't know anything. And then again, I lost a bunch of weight, and guess what happened 2 months later? Whoop, right back on. It's a crazy effective way.
And you were miserable doing it too. Or somewhat miserable.
No, it totally sucked. I mean, the cravings are crazy on that thing. Like,
Yeah.
I'd like to jump in about my dietary program. Is that okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, of course,
Okay.
Jeffro.
Calories. I have no idea how many calories I'm eating because produce doesn't have a barcode on it. So again, I try to do again, organic locals could be number one. I do a rotation diet and also food combining. Are you familiar with those eating habits?
Nope.
Basically,
not.
if I have fish on Monday, I won't have fish the next day. I'll give my digestive tract a breather. So I won't, most people eat, with the supermarket that has 85,000 different kinds of foods, people buy the same 15 foods and eat it for McDonald's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So to give my digestive system a break, I rotate my diet. And I never drink fluids while I eat, never watch videos or TV, newspapers while I eat. So I chew my food, just to mix the saliva with it, being embraced with my food. Let's see, what else do I do? I just know where your food comes from. I say this, if you find out that your meat comes from China and you live in America, maybe get it from Iowa, but then you live in New York. Well, that's still traveling a few thousand miles. So then get your meat in your backyard, because in New York we can get cattle 30 minutes from here. So you don't want you don't want your food to travel thousands upon miles away, to get to your plate, which is common. Avoid the chemicals, man-made chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, MSG. There's 6 different names for MSG. And genetically engineered foods. Just know. Go to the farm and say, how did you grow this food? And see what they say. What's your thought on that?
I mean,
Yeah.
I think if everyone did that, it would solve so many issues that we see in our healthcare system,
Oh yeah.
in the obesity problem, in everything. And I can't stress enough that, I mean, really, when I talk about, knowing your calories, knowing your protein levels. So it's not like I track that stuff every single day, right? I've tracked it in the past, and now I have a pretty good gauge of what I eat and what my protein levels are. And then really, Jeff, I mean, to what you said, like most of my diet is really pretty much sticking with just good protein sources, produce, vegetables, fruits, basically real things, right?
With protein, I'm more of a plant-based diet. I do organic local eggs and wild-caught fish. That's it. I was going to say, with protein. Okay, the biggest and strongest animals in the wild, where do they get their protein from? Plants. Elephant can walk through a brick building, vegetarian. A giraffe, vegetarian. A gorilla can snap a tree in half, vegetarian. So again, I don't mind. You can have protein from meat, but again, I get my protein from broccoli. I don't look at fish as a protein source. I just look at it as something different. So again, I think spirulina is the highest source of protein on the planet. It has 22 out of 22 amino acids. The blue whale lives off of spirulina. So when I say protein, again, I get my protein through plants. And to me, if you want to do meat, chicken, that's fine. But again, to me, that's not a great protein source, because again, you're also getting saturated fat, genetically engineered, meat glues, and they put, if it's not organic, grass-fed and finished meat, you're also, they put dyes in them, meat glue, steroids, hormones, antibiotics, and so forth. So again, it's the quality of protein,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's
100%.
Yeah,
Let
I
me
mean,
guess,
go ahead,
Jeff eats really freaking clean.
No, I'm not ultra rich. There's people that are much cleaner than me.
On the spectrum, you're up there though.
Yeah, my massage therapist calls it the Jeff diet. So, yeah, again, because when I was in high school, I used to weigh 260 pounds. Now I'm 160. So I lost 100 pounds, kept it off for 30 years.
Holy cow.
And reversed, I was diagnosed with IBS. The doctor says, take this drug. And a friend of mine said, have you heard of Candida? No. So again, I did a Candida, parasite, fungus cleanse, and got rid of, fired my doctor, and became an
Good for you.
herbalist.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Okay.
That's all I got to say. Yeah, that's me. So if you have any questions, just feel free to ask. As you know, I like talking about about this.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's where Jeff, you know, I mean, again, back to being in the Facebook group. And this is the stuff, you know, we have resources in our community that are outside of me and Ryan and a couple other people that, you know, we lean on, that, you know, if you ask a question or you have something to contribute, by all means, that's what we love. That's why we love this community. We love our crew. And just going back to his thoughts on, you know, knowing where your food comes from, you know, regarding like meat and everything like that. Like Ryan and I, we are meat eaters, but most of the beef that we have comes from our uncle's farm up in northern Missouri. Like, and we get a shipment like once a year. Big deep freezer, you know, so we know exactly. We've pet half the cows. We've seen those cows. But you know, that's an important thing, is knowing where that stuff comes from, or just knowing, you know, that it's real food. I think for most people, not everybody is going to, you know, go to the 1% category where, you know, you're doing all of these things. But again, let's focus on the big rocks and make sure that you're doing the things that are going to make the biggest difference. So thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Jeff kind of honed that thing for the last 30 years. That's awesome. Another thing I'd throw in
Again,
is like portion control too. Like look at pictures of people at Woodstock. Like everybody is pretty freaking and like lean. And then you take a picture of Woodstock 94 and everybody's a fat guy.
Yeah.
If you don't have, you don't have to go to the Cheesecake Factory or wherever and have a 5,000.
Well, and
calorie meal.
all the stuff that's in our food now too, that wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily in the food back then. So
One more thing is I chew my food. I don't count it, but roughly, you know, chew my food 20, 30 times just to mix the saliva with the food, because you pre-digest your food in your mouth. So again, if you just walk through any restaurant, people just take 2 bites and they inhale it while they're watching their phone. So they have no idea what the food tastes like.
guilty. Guilty.
If I'm
So
hungry,
again, I tell my clients, you know, just drink more water, chew your food, and get sleep. You know,
No,
if I can
I
get
love
them
it.
doing that, that's a success.
I love it. And actually the chewing your food thing is, it's so super important. And it's one of those things that I consciously have to pay attention to at times, because sometimes I'm on the go. I've got so many things going on that it's like just another thing to get done. And so to be, you know, again, just being mindful, being present, but also then the physiological effects of doing that. Very good. All right. Number 4 is, we've heard, you know, people counting their steps. You know, people have these challenges at work, how many steps you get in. I never put a whole lot of stock in, you know, counting steps, or even really what we would call lists, low intensity, steady state cardio. So that would be like walking, you know, getting on treadmill, just walking, going out and just walking outside. And Ryan and I had a conversation, this might've been last week, where we both think that one of the greatest things that we have started doing in our lives for so many reasons is getting out and walking every single day. You know, both of us are now dog owners for the last several years, but also just, you know, making a point to get out and be more active has been, I mean, literally it's, I think one of the things that I'm on my feet all day long here in the gym. So, you know, getting steps, the right amount of steps was probably never really that big of an issue for me. But getting out every single day. And I think that getting outside and walking is there's so many more benefits to it than just getting on a treadmill and walking, but there are benefits to the, to getting on the treadmill as well. But I think it's one of the biggest things that has changed. I think even just, you know, partially body composition wise too, to kind of help keep the metabolism going. We talked about how diet is so important. I've made a lot of changes to my diet over the years, and as have many people that we've worked with. But getting out and walking, I think, has been one of the greatest things to implement into our personal lives. You know, the Forge, I know some people get out and walk on top of their Forge activity as well. And it's just made a big difference. And so I didn't put as much stock into that before. One of the reasons I say that it's more important than I thought it was, is we've started to learn that, you know, your body, the workouts that you do are only a small portion of, you know, your metabolism and the calories burned throughout the day. So being on your feet, walking more, that's why counting steps, has become a little bit more important to me, or gives us at least a little bit of a bar to look at, like, what was my activity level? That's basically what it's tracking. But
Right.
then I think there's other intangible things to getting outside and walking, as far as just being out in nature, fresh air, and just having that daily habit. What about you,
Yeah.
Ryan?
Grounding is another one. If you take your shoes off,
Yep.
it's and for us, it's, oh man, I could list 10,000 things. Most of the time I'm walking with my wife, so that's our 50 minutes to kind of talk about things. If I'm walking by myself, then I've got time to really think about other things that are going on in my world. But yeah, it's the first thing. Like, it's become one of those tasks where I refuse to miss it. Every single morning, whether it's raining, snowing, whatever, I'll do it, just because it starts your day. And you don't have to do it in the morning, but for me, it starts the day on the right foot. I've already accomplished something. It's like, making your bed. You've already accomplished one thing. Well, here's another thing. Yeah, there's something you said. Vitamin D, getting out in the sun.
Mhm.
Because we all live these indoor lives more than we'd like. And even Marina said, you've encouraged me to start with daily power walks before breakfast. It feels so great. Like, you're not kidding.
Yeah. I mean, I forget who it is. I think John Gordon, he's an author. He talks about even making them your gratitude walks. So,
Yeah.
every morning, when he walks by himself, it's about the gratitude of whatever. And, so you're just getting all of these different benefits. But then let's even look at walking the golf course. I think that's one of
my favorite way to play golf.
one of the greatest things ever. And I used to, going back to, things that I got wrong, people would tell me that when I'd ask about their exercise or whatever, they would tell me that they walk a couple times a week. And I would almost kind of like placate, like, oh, that's cool, but
Neat.
when you look at the amount of stress and strain, when you have something like a Whoop on or an Apple Watch or whatever, and you see what the stress and strain levels are when you walk a golf course, you're getting quite a workout when you're out there. In fact, your strain level is going to be higher if you do that than if you go and do a 1.5 hour weight training session when it is tracked by something like the Whoop. So there's just so many benefits to getting out and doing that. Now, I do still believe that we should all be doing some sort of high intensity interval type training here and there, ideally on a weekly basis or so, because I'm a big fan of getting the heart rate up and working the respiratory system, or working the pulmonary and respiratory system, and challenging ourselves that way. But I definitely put more and appreciate more of the fact that walking can be such a benefit to all of us when it comes to even, if you are in a situation where you're trying to lose weight or gain muscle or whatever it might be, the walking is an easy way to not stress your body too much, especially if you're getting some workouts in, because, when you're doing workouts and you're doing a lot of high intensity interval training kind of activities, that can be almost a little bit overload. And so doing the low intensity stuff is much easier on the body. In fact, when you talk to many bodybuilders, who are, they're experts at the body composition stuff, most of them will simply do some lower steady state lower steady state cardio, as opposed to most of them won't do any high intensity stuff, really.
Really? Yeah, those guys haven't figured out how to make a body look the way they want it to look.
Yeah.
So I believe that. Yeah, I like
For
what
sure.
I like what Jim said there.
Yeah.
And you read that? Yeah. So Jim says he walks every morning at least a third to half a mile.
Yeah.
Gets the fluids in his body activated, and the quiet of the morning gets you to focus on now, not yesterday or today, just being present.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
Yeah. I love the quiet of the morning.
Oh, it's so
Wow.
great.
It's 3:05. I didn't even realize that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we might have to continue this. The last couple things that I was going to talk about, and I'll let you guys go here, is just the the lack of importance that, and this is going back years. Obviously, you guys know over the past couple of years, this has changed, but the lack of importance that I used to put on recovery, both for my clients and for myself. But I used to think that you could outwork your bad habits, you know, not sleeping well,
Right.
not eating well, alcohol. I used to think just come on, I'm a young guy. I can just push through and I can push through. And I now realize, you know, that that's such an important piece to your performance, is how you can recover to be ready for your performance. And so all of those things, you know, we've talked a lot about recovery, active recovery, passive recovery, and we'll get into some more of these things. Maybe we'll do some more calls regarding this stuff. The second one, or the next one, which would be number 6, is core strength. I feel like I've gone through a progression of core strength training and what's important. You know, initially you think it's the six pack abs. So like a lot of crunches and a lot of movements that way. And then I kind of got into the belief that, you know, rightfully so, it's not all about doing those straight plain exercises. It's not all about the 6-pack look. It's more about being able to brace through your core and build up your core that way. But kind of got into the thinking that, well, all I needed to do was the heavier lifts, and that would allow for the bracing, which is true, but there needs to be a little bit more. And so I think we've seen over the last couple years, we've really paid more attention to bracing with exercises like planks, side planks, things like that. Not so much the rotation piece, but really kind of looking at all sides of the body and learning to brace better to be able to withstand forces from rotation or from movement, keeping the spine nice and stable, but having to put a little emphasis on those with some different exercises towards the end of our workouts. So you can't get it all from just your squats and your deadlifts and your split squats. You can get a lot of it, but sometimes you need to pinpoint a little bit more there.
Yep.
And I'm gonna leave it at that. That'll be the last one for today. So I appreciate you guys. I apologize for going over a few 8 minutes here, but really appreciate you guys, and hopefully that, you know, helps shed some light on what we've done wrong and what we're trying to do right.
That's right. You learn more about what you did wrong than what you've done right.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right,
Any
man.
last words from anybody real quick? All good?
Keep screwing up, man. It helps all of us.
Yeah, right. For sure. Oh, we do a lot of that here.
All
All right,
my man.
guys. We'll talk to you
All right.
soon. Ryan and I will keep you posted on how our race goes this weekend. We'll see you next week.
First place.
That's right.
See
In your
ya.
head. Bye.